Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I have a craft for you all. It's a little bit time consuming as far as braiding the yarn that we're going to use, but it's an easy project. I'm starting with a styrofoam wreath form from Dollar Tree, then a stretchy steering wheel cover in tie-dye from Dollar Tree, some yarn also from Dollar Tree. Only I'm going to be using the dark purple. I already had the sticker pulled off of that one, so I showed you the blue. The only thing that I'll be using that is not from Dollar Tree is my hot glue gun and glue sticks. So I've started just by plugging in my hot glue gun, getting it ready to go. The first thing that we're going to do is make our little peace sign design, but first I am going to check and see where this steering wheel cover fits on this wreath. So there is a little bit of slouch in it. If you had a larger wreath form, it probably would still stretch over that also. I'm just using one of these small ones. And as you can see, the inside of the wreath will be exposed. We are going to cover that later with flowers off of one of the Hawaiian leis from Dollar Tree. So what I'm going to do is start by measuring out 9 strips of yarn. That's because I'm going to be making a 9-strand braid. So the reason that I used the purple yarn is I am partial to purple. You can use whatever color you want, or you could use 9 different colors if it helps you to keep the strands in order once you're braiding them. I just went with this darker purple from Dollar Tree because I felt like it matched the dark purple and the tie-dye pretty well. So here is the little multicolored lei that I'm going to use. Now, one lei will not completely cover all of the styrofoam that's in the very back of the wreath. You'll have a tiny strip that's going to be left. I didn't care because it's going to be up against the door or the wall and you can't see it from the front. If you're somebody who is a stickler for having every square inch of it covered, you'll want to grab 2 of those multicolored leis. So I'm going to start by measuring out a string of yarn the length of my arm. So from my shoulder down to the crease of my thumb and forefinger. And I'm going to cut 9 strips that long. So jumping forward, I've got all of my 9 strips cut here. I'm trying to hold the ends as close to even as I can. And then I'm going to hot glue these onto the wreath. If you pay attention on your styrofoam wreath forms, there is like a little slit where it is put together. That's where I'm going to start my braid, is right where that little slice is. I'm just going to put a good little amount of hot glue on there and stick those yarn pieces down into it to get a good hold so they don't pull off while I am braiding them. And if you are someone who has really sensitive fingers or your hot glue gun gets super hot like mine, Dollar Tree also carries these little pink finger protectors that I have on. They come in a pack of 3. So I've stuck them all down into the first layer of hot glue, and then what I'm going to do is just put another little strip of hot glue over top of them to make sure that they're held in place really well. So my glue at this point is now dry enough that I can start working with the braid. What I'm going to do is take those 9 strands and split them into 3 groups of 3 based on which side they are on the wreath. So we're going to start braiding from the middle 3 strands. I do apologize for the lighting. My camera for some reason kept trying to focus in and out and it gets bright and then dull. But you're going to start the middle just like you would a normal 3-strand braid. Pull one side over and then the other side over. And now you're going to start working with your outside strands on either side. We're going to pull the one that is closest to the inside. And that's going to go under the strand from the first braid and then over the middle one. Then on the other side, same thing, under and then over to the middle. Now moving on to the second farthest away, that one is going to come over first and then under. And then you're going to repeat that on this other side. All I'm doing when I'm moving those strings is trying to tighten them up a little bit. So now, same thing on the other side. Grab that second strand from the outside, come over first, and then under. And I'm just tightening a little bit as I go. And then on the last one, you're going to go under and then over. So if you can remember, the center is a regular braid, and from the outside you go under first, then over, and then end with an under first. And I'm tightening them just enough that they're not kind of dangling and super loose, but you don't want them really, really tight because we're going to go through some of these later to make the cross sections of our peace sign. So I'm just going to continue with this 9-strand braid. I'm going to show you one more time on here, and then I will stop the camera and I will come back once it is all finished. So starting with the 3 strands that are in the middle. Regular braid over, and then over from the other side. Now starting with the first string closest to the inside, under, and then over to the middle. Same thing on the other side. Going under, and then over that middle strand. Now we're going to do the opposite. We started with an under, now we're going to go over, and then under. And then same thing on the other side, over, and then under, and ending same way we started, under, and then over, and under, and over, and then tightening. And you can kind of see a pattern as you go here. Once you've gotten all of your strings set, you'll have 2 strings that kind of stick out to either side, and then the other strings will be facing straight down to the bottom of the wreath. If you just pull on those 2 strings that are facing out to each side, your braid will tighten on its own. So I've gotten it braided all the way down from the top of the wreath to the bottom. What I'm going to do now is hold the ends of that 9-strand braid tightly together. I'm going to put a nice little bit of glue on here and press all of those strings down in there. Make sure that you get every single one of them tucked into this glue nice and tight. That way your braid does not come unraveled on you. And then again, like I did before, I'm going to put another little strip over top of the yarn just to make sure that it is very well covered and held in place. So I'm just going to let this glue dry for a couple of minutes until it is almost hardened but still a little bit tacky. I know the table is kind of dark wood and this is a dark yarn, so I'm trying to hold my hand or like a piece of paper behind it so you can see what it looks like. So my glue has set enough to where it's just a little bit sticky. I'm going to trim off the ends of this yarn. I'm going to leave about a 1/2 inch. And then we're going to take that little 1/2 inch of yarn that's left and fold that over and press it down into that hot glue just to give it a little bit extra hold to keep it from unraveling. So this is what the back of it will look like once you've gotten it stuck down. So now we're going to move on to the little cross sections of the peace sign, which go out at a diagonal to either side. And for those, we're going to be working with a 7-strand braid instead of a 9-strand. Same thing as last time. I'm going to cut strands the length of my arm. I'm going to cut 7 of those out. And then I will show you how we're going to run those through this 9-strand braid. And when it comes to working the 7-strand braid, it is worked just like the 9-strand braid. You start in the middle with a normal braid and then weave in your sides. So this is what the front of the 9-strand braid looks like on the wreath. When you flip it around, if you can see on the back, so your very outer loops are a little bit more loose than the inside of the braid. That's where we're going to run our strands of yarn through for our other braids that we're going to put in here. Is just through those 2 outermost loops, and I'm going to about the middle of that first braid to start my little diagonal crosses. So this is where I started trying to put them through one at a time, and then I realized that was really dumb. Work smarter, not harder. So I'm lining all 7 of them up in my fingers and just pinching the ends together, keeping them as even as possible, and I'm just going to run them all through at once. Pull up those 2 loops, and then we're just going to tuck those through and pull them until we have an even amount on either side. So that part is finished. I'm now going to work my 7-strand braids. There they are once they have been braided, and then I just pulled them down at an angle instead of straight across and glued them just like I did that first braid to the back of the wreath. And if you are someone who's familiar with macrame or does macrame, you probably already know how to do these braids. So there they all are glued on. So our next step is going to be to put our little steering wheel cover on and see how much wreath we have left to fill in with those little flowers. If you wanted, you could have just painted the inside of this wreath if you didn't want to put anything in there afterwards and just paint it a certain color, or you could have taken that yarn and wrapped the entire wreath all the way around and then put your braids and everything on. That way it would have been colored. I just like the look of the flowers a little bit better. So that's what it looks like before the flowers go on. I'm just going to snip the string on this lei, and all of these flowers will come off. They are really thin, and each of them is 2 layers. So if you put the 2 layers together and then just kind of slide your forefingers and your thumb apart a little bit to stretch them out, they will cover almost the entire wreath form. I'm just going to put little dots of hot glue, stretch those little flower petals apart, and then I'm just sticking them down, and I am going to stick them close to each other so that the petals from the first flower are lifted up by the second flower to make it look a little more full. And this is what it looks like once it's finished. This is the very back. There's that little strip of foam that I said you'll be able to see if you're looking at the back, but not if you look at it from the front. I did still have like 5 little flowers left over off of that lei that I could have added, but I think it looks fine the way it is. When it's turned around to the front, you can't even tell that that's there. and I think it turned out really cute. The only thing that I did do was I went back later and added a little butterfly, also from Dollar Tree. They are in the floral section. They come in little 2-packs, and they have a wire on the back. I just pulled that wire out and hot glued it straight onto that 9-strand braid. This is what it looks like when it was completely done. I'm really happy with it. I think it's cute, gives off definite hippie vibes and lots of bright summer colors. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to check out more of our content. Also, if you make this project or use this project as inspiration for your own works, show me a picture of them down in the comments or tag me on Instagram because I love to see what you guys make. And thank you so much for watching. We will see you guys in the next video.